I'm back. I'm back from my trip. It was fantastic. It was my perfect weather, which is 50 degrees and sunny. Here it is 70. Anyway, back for the giant chapter. Also, I wanted to do a little thing for myself to see how much I can remember because I know my memory sucks. So, rundown of like information / theories / conclusions I've drawn from said information. 1. Where do I start? Blood of Eden has a bunch of 6th house people. I don't know how many. It said 16. And so I thought 16, and then either someone said, mentioned something in the Discord that I'm in, or something, and then I was like, it could be 16,000. You know, in retrospect, that makes a lot more sense than just, oh yeah, there's just 16 people that you guys are willing to, you know, kill for or whatever. I mean, that's fair, very fair. But also, like, where are the rest of them? I don't know where the rest of them are. I don't know where anyone else is. I don't know what happened to the other houses. I don't know what happened to Dominicus when the Emperor was kind of dead for... Emperor? Why did I call him the Emperor? When God was dead for a little bit. I know that what I assume is the 7th resurrection beast is talking to Nona, kind of, or singing to her, talking to her through Judith, kind of, singing to her otherwise, I guess. I'm guessing that's, you know, Electo connected. Suddenly I can't think of words. Suddenly I cannot think of words. Related. Electo-related. That's the word I was looking for. Also, the Jaunterludes, as someone has called it in the same Discord. So I've been looking at other people's reactions now that I've finished the chapters, which I've never really done before. Especially since I don't 100% know what's going on, obviously, because, you know, this is how these books work. And they were like, oh my god! John was talking to Electo the entire time? Because, as you can remember, I was incredibly confused at the end of the last Jaunterlude. I was like, what is happening? Why are they the last people there? I was way too focused on the Harrow part and my weird theory that John is somehow wherever Harrow is, which is, I assume, in the river or whatever. Although I don't know why he would be stuck there. So now I'm thinking, now that someone was like, oh, it's Electo, it does make sense that he was talking to her, kind of. So what I'm guessing is that Harrow is seeing Electo's memories through shenanigans. Because of shenanigans! Because she's lied down in what seems to be her version of the locked tomb in the end of the last book. What else? What else is going on, theory-wise? I don't know. My questions are still, what's Nona's secret about organs? Also, I love that this eventually should probably tell us something about Nona. I'm like, what? Which one of the, you know, secrets or whatever, that Nona has decided this is the most important one? I mean, she's probably correct, especially since we don't know it. We can't know all of the secrets. Was that it? I was thinking about this as I was going to bed last night. I was like, oh my god, I have to, like, say everything. Mostly Electo and the Resurrection Beast, I think, was the main thing, the Jaunterludes. Oh, also, well, this was from a while ago. They only mentioned it once, and I was like, I had to really be looking. I was like, what the fuck is this about? So I'm guessing they have Gideon's body and are doing weird experiments on it to try to get it, you know, to come back to life or whatever, or be able to get Gideon in. I don't know, okay? They mentioned stuff about, and then Pyrrha was like, oh, the last time this happened, it was to someone else's cavalier, so I'm assuming, you know? Also, there's the whole thing with Camilla and Palamedes that nobody really knows how it works. So, at least they're not crazy. Poor Judith, honestly. Poor Judith. I think that's it. I don't know what's going on with the teachers or hot sauce or that stuff. I think we should probably just start reading chapter 16. Oh, and it's got a different icon. It's got a little tower thing. It looks like the top of a tower. Whew, okay, let's do it. It seems like everything is, really gearing up and starting to happen now, which is, on one hand, what I've been waiting for. On another hand, I'm a little terrified. I'm almost halfway into the book. Okay. Chapter 16. Nona awoke with a start right before the door crashed open, like she had an extra sense for crashing doors. Honesty ran into the room, not even taking off his outside boots or his sand jacket, and he shouted, "They're coming! They're here now! They're setting up that old video screen in the square tonight! They're gonna screen some video at 5:30. It's them! It's zombies! They're back! Holy shit!" Honesty, I love you. "Language, Honesty," said someone else. Nona rubbed her eyes and struggled to sit up. She had been about to say the same thing, but all that came out was garble. It was the voice of the angel, who had taken a position quite near the big whiteboard, one knee folded over the other. "I've got to swear, sir," said Honesty. "You can't let me not swear about this. It'll give me inhibitions." Anyway, struck by fresh inspiration, "with zombies here, sir, I'm not going to bother with school anymore. There'll be a war. I've got a deal full time." "Oh, honey. Then you'd better attend math lessons, at least," said the angel dryly. "I've seen your multiplication, Honesty. You're going to get stiffed." "Maybe maths, if I feel like it," allowed Honesty, and he turned towards the mats. Hot sauce, what are we gonna do?" Hot Sauce was sitting up on her mat, knees drawn to her chest, arms loosely dangling over her knees. "Wait and see," she said. I think that's pretty smart. Kevin was waking up too. Oh, poor Kevin. Elbowing sleep out of his eyes. Ooh. That seems uncomfortable. Can't stop. And, elbowing sleep out of his eyes and largely decorated with crumbs. Honesty said, "War, Kevin! It's gonna be war!" And Kevin just said, "Ugh," and lay back down in bed, completely unmoved by war. You know, fair. I also want to go to sleep. Desperate for someone's approval, Honesty dropped to his haunches next to Nona and bawled, "Nona, what do you think?" Nona, still feeling as though her eyes were stopped up with dreams, wriggled her nose so she wouldn't yawn. Ooh, that's a great line. Also, I finally got my giant package full of like 20 of these. So, y'all better not be weird. Okay, nothing is stuck. There's no residue left. Fingers crossed. Her ears were still stopped up with dreams. I feel like I have not used... I was about to say I feel like I haven't used tabs. There's a tab on the very back. I turned one page back and there was tabs. It's just because I haven't done this in a while. Alright. Nona, still feeling as though her ears were stopped up with dreams, wriggled her nose so she wouldn't yawn. Her mouth tasted like pencil. Oh, honey, why are you eating pencils? She said with perfect bewilderment, "Who's here? What's going to be on the screen? Necromancers, stupid," said Honesty. Then he did have the grace to look at the angel, as though he were expecting a punishment. But all the angel did was shake her head and say quietly, "Try not to scare Kevin or Nona, Honesty." Okay, said Honesty, a little abashed. Then, "I don't know. The militia's setting up, all wearing their old uniforms, all getting the netting out. I went to the square and nearly got my head shut off. Honestly, they're all jumpy that people are taking pot shots at him. I saw some old lady wailing in the street that we were all about to be lined up and executed. Well, they won't get me." Honesty, I love you. The door barreled open again. It was Born in the Morning and beautiful Ruby, who had obviously raced each other up the stairs. They were panting like dogs, and beautiful Ruby had to lean over and brace on his knees and still looked as though he might throw up. Wait! No, never mind. I just had the thought, I was thinking about names and how Nona is like, I assume, possibly, understanding the names and not the... Yeah, understanding the names literally because of her, translating brain. And I was like, okay, so is that what happened with Corona? And then I was like, wait, no, like her name is like a whole entire quote. And then I was like, wait, is she just understanding these quotes? Are our names quotes? And then I was like, wait, no, I've heard other people say the names wait, no. You have to hear Nona say them and someone else react to it for you to know that she's not understanding them correctly. That's happened once with something else. She said Pash. I'm not gonna overthink this. I feel like this is a minor detail. Whatever. Okay. They were panting like dogs, and beautiful Ruby had to lean over and brace on his knees, and still looked as though he might throw up. Nona was completely awake now. Born in the morning said, I won! And beautiful Ruby said, you didn't, I won on the stairs! And they squabbled, right up until Honesty said, boys, really, is it the time? Mom says they're setting up the screen to tell us which resettlement to go to, panted beautiful Ruby. Born in the morning said, they can't tell us anything, the sky's still blue. They can't tell us anything, the sky's still blue. They'll go crazy. They're lying. What? Are they talking about necromancers? Which resettlement to go to? I always assume they're talking about, like, when they're talking about, like, government, I assume they're talking about Blood of Eden. Or any ruling force. They can't tell us anything, they'll go crazy, they're lying. Who are they talking about? Are necromancers setting up broadcasts? This is confusing. Have necromancers broadcasted before? I mean, I guess that might make sense. But why would Blood of Eden let necromancers be broadcasted if they didn't, if... I don't know, okay? Mom says doesn't matter, do it anyway. What does your mom know? At least I've got a mom and not only a bunch of moldy old dads, fired back beautiful Ruby. Hey, be nice to the dads. Don't fight, begged Nona, just as they started to clasp each other around the neck in strangulation positions. It's not fair. Too much is going on and I don't want to think about your fight and the square and the screen. That's fair. The boys untangled from each other, but very reluctantly. It was at this moment of hesitation and surrender, the angel stood up and said, quietly but in a voice that brooked no rebellion, sit down on the mats, all of you. This wasn't hard for Nona, who was sitting down on the mats already. Same with Hot Sauce and Kevin. Born in the morning and beautiful Ruby and Honesty all came and flopped themselves down on the mats one by one. It didn't seem like any of the other kids had come back, only their king. Nona was grateful in a way. She thought the tinies all ought to be at home. The angel said, I want to ask you to promise, all on your honor, that none of you will go to the screening tonight. If your families want to go, fine, but that's not going to be a place for children. Honesty said, who's a kid? And the angel said, you are. Keep in mind, I've seen this before. House overtures. Okay, I should have just kept reading. But why are they screening it? I don't know. I guess they're relying on the fact that people already hate necromancers, so there's not really going to be that much sympathy if they somehow manage to garner sympathy through the fact. Blah, blah, blah. I'm now looking at how my mouth is moving, and I'm overthinking it. Okay. I'm fine! Tempers run high. There'll be people who make decisions before they really think about them. And if you're there and one of you gets hurt, that's going to add to the fracas. I don't want to see your bodies paraded through the streets and your mugs up on photographs for one cause or the other. Sure. They were all silent. The angel said, "Promise me, kids, please. I know you're an honorable bunch. Especially you, Honesty." Honesty was touched. "I am, so I won't," he said. "I swear. I mean, I could make a killing. So you've got me by the balls here." "Please never say that again," said the angel. "I won't go either," said beautiful Ruby, and Born in the Morning. And Born in the Morning said more reluctantly, "Younger brother father might want me to go. He sometimes does." Then Honesty gave him a really good burn twist on the arm so the skin went dark red, and he yelled and said, "But I won't! Stop it!" Hot Sauce said, "I won't." And that seemed to be that. The angel didn't ask Nona, but Nona was a bit troubled. She was sitting at the back as the oldest, and she was very close to Hot Sauce, so only she could see that Hot Sauce had crossed her fingers. Then Hot Sauce said, "Why a video screen?" "Well, why do you think a video screen? Why not just stand up there and talk through a loudspeaker?" said the angel. Nona, who thought about this kind of thing a great deal, immediately said, "Oh, they don't want to get shot. They'd probably get shot by someone." What? I'm so confused. So it's on record if someone shoots them while they're videotaping or live streaming? You'd think, on the other hand, that it would be easier to shoot someone if you could see where they were. And you could recognize it and go shoot them. Yeah, I love how this doesn't make sense. I love how this random sentence, just a very small detail, still doesn't make sense. I mean, maybe I'm just being dumb, but whatever. Is there another one in here that I wanted a yellow tab for being confused? Ah, the sky's still blue, they'll go clay. Oh, that one made sense. Okay. Because they were talking, in fact, about necromancers. Okay. Ouchie. I slept weird. My neck is unhappy. Right. "Yes, well done," said the angel. The others were all immediately chuffed for her and demonstrated it. They slapped her on the back and said, "Good one, Nona," and "You're smart, Nona," until Nona preened. But then a few seconds later, she felt a little bit patronized, and she said, "Well, I wonder who it is who's going to speak." "You'll find out. Why hurry," said the angel. "Look, I'm the only teacher left here. Jolie has gone home to make sure her parents are all right. Let's cancel school for the evening and do something fun, why don't we? I don't feel like teaching anything very scientific. I'll get out the drawing paper and the paints, and we can draw for a while. We'll leave the blackouts up and turn on the lights early." Born in the Morning said, "My dad said to come right back, or they'd come to pick me up." And the angel said, "A quandary, isn't it? Well, I don't want to contradict your fathers, but why not let them come and pick you up? I don't feel great about letting you walk alone through the streets right now. They'll be jabbing and temperature testing everyone in sight, even if they've seen you before, so make sure you're not house. If you want a needle jabbed in your ass, go ahead." It was so funny to hear the angels say arse that everyone lost it. Ass. I never know how to pronounce that. I always feel a little bit weird. Arse. Nona included. Even Kevin giggled, even though he was normally very serious. Hot Sauce smiled too, but a little distantly, like she was thinking of something else. She was happy enough to go with Nona to get out the big brown sheets of drawing paper and the nice-smelling boxes of fat wax crayons and chalk. Are necromancers automatically a different temperature from humans? Or is it just because they can adjust their temperature? I don't know. I can't remember. Like, I remember Harrow doing that, among other things. I guess. Yeah, the needle is probably for the other part. Is this genetic? Sort of? I mean, this is like sci-fi. I suppose they can do gene tests pretty quickly. Or test for like energy or thallergy or something. I don't know. Everyone has thallergy. I think it's the energy. The angel was at the light box, flicking switches and saying, "Draw your favorite animal. Go on. I've got a book of pictures if you want help." But as it turned out, everyone only wanted to draw Noodle. Noodle was asleep next to the teacher's desk on one of the abandoned mats, and beautiful Ruby and Born in the Morning and even Honesty and Kevin squatted there to sketch his outline in chalk. Funny to think of Honesty drawing Noodle, really, when he just said no more school. But it hurt Nona's feelings a little bit. She didn't want to think about anyone leaving school. She sat back at one of the tables, feeling her weight as a teacher's aide, doodling a little bit on one of the big round pieces of paper, but not quite joining in, and Hot Sauce perched on the desk next to her, still staring out the window. The angel went around closing them all, but she shouldn't have bothered, Nona thought. The outside was weirdly, deadly quiet. You couldn't even hear honking. Also, what the fuck is the convoy? Honestly, that might be one thing that I'm overthinking. It's probably just like the official, like, products and stuff, like produce and stuff. Nona sketched some ideas of animals, what she thought animals should look like, on best principles. I want to see that. And once satisfied with her work, put down her pencil and looked around instead. It almost seemed normal inside the classroom, though not as noisy as it would be any other day. Beautiful Ruby could create enough noise for 10 children, at least. But everyone was busy, heads down and content with the chance to do some art. She saw that this troubled the angel. Whenever she looked out over them, she seemed to be cheerful, sometimes saying something like, "Only 6 legs, remember, Ruby? He was bred to have a single arboreal pair." Arboreal? Doesn't that mean, like, something to do with plants? He's got plant legs? Look up what arboreal is and try to adjust my legs without knocking on the tripod. It's not a tripod, but whatever. It's my ring light technically, but it works as a tripod. Okay. Oh, goodness. I need to do some yoga. My neck is really bothering me. Ouchie. Relating to or resembling a tree. Okay, so Noodle's got tree legs, apparently. Bred to have a single arboreal pair. Single? So only one of his pairs of legs is tree-like? The rest are just regular legs? This is probably not, like, something important, but, like, I am weirdly fascinated by it. Anyway. But there was a sorry quirk to the corners of her thin, freckled mouth, like them all being so well-behaved was miserable in a way. That's funny. That Nona refers to her with female pronouns. Someone just, I think Honesty just called them sir, and I think I've heard neutral pronouns as well. Could be all of them. Every so often she would stick her thumbs in her suspenders and whistle a note or two like a back of the truck seller on the street, and to Nona's those notes didn't sound cheerful at all. At one point, Honesty stretched his arms out and cracked his neck and his knuckles, and he sidled over to the curtains to twitch them open to take a look at the street. And the angel said so sharply, "Be sensible, Honesty." I don't know why I said it like that. But he dropped the curtain like he'd been shot. But it was too late. He twitched it. The look Hot Sauce gave him physically staggered him. He went back to his painting so meekly that, on any other day, Nona would have screamed with laughter, but not right then. Nona looked up at the clock, gave it her best shot, squinted herself cross-eyed, and then gave up. "Yes, Nona? You don't have to put up your hand, you know," said the angel. "You do work here." "What's the time, please?" "Get here on 5 o'clock," said the angel. Camilla always came to pick her up before lunchtime. That meant it was over 4 hours that Camilla was overdue. Camilla had never been overdue in Nona's whole life. Something very obvious must have happened on her face because the angel said hastily, "Nona, can you take Noodle out? He hasn't been since before lunch, and it's not fair on the poor creature. He's got aging kidneys." "I'll go too," said Hot Sauce. "Me 3, said Honesty. Hot Sauce said, "Stay put, 2's enough." Honesty didn't even argue. Nona was happy enough to take Noodle's lead, and Noodle was even happier. He even whisked a bit. What does that mean? What is he whisking? Is he making an omelet? Okay. He was always good at sensing feelings. Nona thought she and Noodle were very alike in some ways, except she sadly did not have an arboreal anything. She and Hot Sauce shrugged on their dust jackets, and buttoned up the sleeves in the cloakroom, and Nona clipped the leash to Noodle's collar and led him down a flight of black and cool and quiet stairs, Hot Sauce following behind, and once they were 1 floor down, she said, "Camilla hasn't come for me." "Sleep at mine if she doesn't," said Hot Sauce. This idea quite startled Nona, who'd never slept apart from Camilla. She was homesick thinking about her. She had thought Hot Sauce would maybe say something sympathetic or understanding like, don't worry about it. But the problem with Hot Sauce was that she was a little bit like Cam. When you came to her with a problem, she gave you something to do about it. Nona didn't know what to say, so she blurted, "You crossed your fingers when you said yes to the angel." "Didn't want to lie," said Hot Sauce, "just in case of it becoming a lie." "You always do what the angel says." "Wrong. I always keep my promises to the angel. This time I didn't promise." Nona thought of calamities, then said, "That's not really the spirit of the law, even if it is the letter." "What's that mean?" "It means that even if technically you're not breaking the rule, you sort of are anyway in your heart." "So?" Nona had no idea how to counter so. By then they were down at the bottom floor and Hot Sauce was carefully checking the dust and concrete yard where Nona had so often taken Noodle for his lunchtime bathroom trips. Peering through the glass-paneled doors where such a short time ago Nona had burst through with Crown. Red lights still flashed above the double doors, which meant they were locked. Nona searched for ways to dissuade Hot Sauce and said, "You said earlier the angel came in a truck with a grill." "Yes. Never seen her come in a car before," said Hot Sauce. "Come outside. We're clear." They opened the heavy doors and the heat hit him, as it always did, like putting on wet clothes. Ugh. Even though it was later in the afternoon than Nona was used to, it was still hotter than hot. The kind of heat that prickled her all over, even underneath her hair, and made her shudder inside her dust jacket. Why do I keep saying dusk jacket instead of dust jacket? Nona knelt down to unclip the lead, and Noodle, aware of his dignity, trundled out of sight to do his business behind a broken slab of rock. They watched his exit in silence. "But doesn't that mean the angel's being looked after and we don't have to worry?" said Nona after a while. Hot Sauce didn't look so sure. "Her driver stopped the car and someone got out after the angel had gone into the school," said Hot Sauce. "Check the doorways of both the buildings opposite and the alleys. Professional." Nona was enchanted. Maybe the angel's rich and important. "She's vulnerable with us. We have to keep her safe," said Hot Sauce, "more than ever." "Because of war?" "Because of war." Noodle came back to them and self-importantly kicked dirt behind him with his backmost legs. The middle set, the arboreal set, stretched out all the way to the middle of his body as he elongated himself. Then he yawned in a nice way to show that he was agreeable. Both Hot Sauce and Nona spent a little bit of time scratching him beneath his collar and on the bump where his tailbone started. Then once he had had enough scratches, he sat on his haunches and they clipped the lead back on. When they went back into the foyer, Nona noticed that Hot Sauce lingered there a little, staring out into the street through the smeared glass. As Nona moved to mount the stairs, Hot Sauce said suddenly, "Wait!" Nona waited. So did Noodle. They'll be starting the broadcast soon, said Hot Sauce. Even if Nona had not been Nona, she felt that she would have been able to easily translate that stubborn set of Hot Sauce shoulders, the readiness in her hands. Her whole body was turning to face the street, like wanting was somehow magnetic. I like that. I said that in a weird tone of voice, but, whatever. I like that. Like wanting was somehow magnetic. Oof. Nona hedged, "But the angel won't know where we've gone." "Write a note. Give it to Noodle. He's smart." That's adorable. Nona was thrilled with the idea of leaving a note on Noodle, and was sorry they hadn't struck on the idea before to leave messages for the angel or anyone else, but was deeply unhappy that the discovery had only been made in this particular situation. "But I can't write," said Nona. "I can," said Hot Sauce. Then she amended, "Enough." "But, Hot Sauce, the angel won't trust us after this." "The asset doesn't have to trust you," said Hot Sauce, sounding all of a sudden very grown-up and very professional and very much like Pyrrha. Nona was so cowed she didn't even ask what part of you the asset was. What part of you the asset was? Oh my goodness, my brain is not working very well. She's still tired. She's still tired from the trip. I keep trying to go to bed early. Last night I went to bed earlier than the night before, but still not really early compared to how I usually go to bed. Or when I usually go to bed. Still, I guess I'm going to put a yellow tab there, because I'm like, what? Why is this sentence confusing me? Is it confusing me because it's confusing, or is it confusing me because my brain's tired? Hot Sauce followed this up with, "I'll go alone, if you don't want to. I'm a teacher's aide. I'm meant to look after you." "Then look after me, unless you're scared." "I'm not scared of anything," lied Nona, but added urgently, "You can't let me get hurt." Hot Sauce just shrugged expressively at that, like, I wasn't going to. And Nona wishes she could have made Hot Sauce understand somehow. But it was all happening so quickly. She said helplessly, even like a sunburn, or if there's a dust storm. But Hot Sauce was ignoring her to rummage through what had long ago used to be someone's front desk, finding a bit of scrap paper, getting a pen, and seeing if the ink had dried out. She began printing laboriously. It took her such a long time that Nona was hopeful the angel would get curious about where they were and come down and rumble their plan, but it was not to be. Hot Sauce knelt down by the dog and tucked the note into his collar, unclipped the leash and hung it up in the foyer, wedged the paper in tight so it wouldn't fall out. Nona hoped devoutly that the angel would check it. "Noodle," said Hot Sauce in the voice of command. "Go upstairs." Noodle looked at Hot Sauce in much the way that Nona wished she could look at Hot Sauce, a sort of, "Why aren't you coming with me? Are you dim?" expression. But when Hot Sauce repeated, "Go upstairs," he wagged his tail a bit, then turned away and started mounting the stairs. "Go," said Hot Sauce. Nona and Hot Sauce made for the doors. Hot Sauce held the locking apparatus down and Nona shoved through. They were heavy fire doors and they took some pushing, though Crown had breezed through them like they had been feathers, and Hot Sauce flew after her. The door went click, locking itself behind them, and Hot Sauce said, "Hood up, go, go, go," and seized Nona's hand, and like a loose bullet ricocheted off down the street. It was all Nona could do to cling to her heart beating fast, regretting all of the decisions that had led her to that moment. Then she told herself sternly, stop it. If she was going to do it, she thought, she might as well do it. She had some vague notion that when you committed to a thing, you had to do it all the way. Who said that to her? Who had taught her that? Once you've stepped in, said the voice in the back of her head. You're in. This isn't the hokey pokey. She had remembered something. She'd finally remembered something. Only she didn't have anyone to tell. Who would say that? Sounds like a Gideon thing to say, but not the hokey pokey. Honestly, because of the hokey pokey, oh my goodness, of course my camera still does that. It makes me think of God, because he's the one who he's the one who consciously makes references to the pre-necromancy world. Also, I got a cool hair stick, and I'm not currently using it for hair, but I wanted to show you. Well, I'm not currently using it to hold up like a bun, but I really like it, so I wanted to show you. Okay. Goodness gracious, is this another yellow? Let's do purple for narratively important. Technically it is. Maybe the second time around I should have some different colors and add them or switch them out for the weird Nona stuff. I've never tabbed a book before I like knew what was happening in it. So that way I kind of, knew if I needed a new tab or something like that, or what I should assign the tabs. Oh well. What did I use yellow for before this? I don't know. I suppose when I reread the other ones, I'll find out. Oh, the last one, it was the weird river stuff / flashbacks, I'm pretty sure. The confusing stuff, again. Less confusing, now that it's been a few times around. Yeah, my hair's just gonna be... She's just gonna be tangled. She's just angry at me. Nona was saved from being seriously out of breath by the fact that a few streets down they caught up with a crowd of people shuffling forward. There was no talking, just the noise of moving feet. A truck chugging along, keeping pace with the pedestrians. A baby shushed in someone's arms. They were all hooded and jacketed, and without hesitation, Hot Sauce merged with the mass. It was incredible the way she moved. The moment she joined that crowd, her shoulders were flung back, she straightened up a whole inch. She swaggered with her hips. She aged 15 years, no longer a child among that throng of people. Nona dropped her hand and tried to do the same, straightening her back, softening her hips. And Hot Sauce, beneath her breath, just said, "Keep it up." It worked. They glued themselves shoulder to shoulder in that slow queue. They were being streamed into the big 8-lane street in front of the Civics building, where militia officers directed people from the backs of the trucks or on their putt-putts. Each one had a helmet, each one with a stick. Most of them so badly frightened that Nona swore she could watch them sweat. They were turning some people away. The person with the baby was told to stay at the back of the crowd. The officer said in a low voice, If they stampede, you'll be hurt. And the person with the baby said tonelessly, "Who cares? We might as well die." Okay. An older man in the crowd turned around and said quite clearly, enough that people flinched from the raised voice, "Don't you give them that. Don't you give the Zeds that pleasure. I don't care. We're probably being kettled." We aren't, said the old man. "You see the trucks at the gates? You see the ladders? We aren't." "Just don't bring that baby in," said the militia officer. "No kids, no cars. That's the rule." "You and whose army?" scoffed the person, but the old man said, "Don't be a fool. You know whose army. Stay back here with me, Sonny. Stay back here with me." Nona was grateful that she and Hot Sauce passed unnoticed beneath the officer's nose. There was already a cross-faced collection of kids and teenagers in the back of a militia truck, grumbling and swapping cigarettes. Some of them significantly older than Hot Sauce and looking a lot older than Nona. She ducked her head a little bit more inside her hood and tried to walk bigger. The crowd was thick and tall. Hot Sauce grabbed Nona's forearm and beelined between the people. Hot Sauce never cared who she jostled, until she stopped dead by one of the traffic lights, right next to a raggedy trash can. It was the kind of traffic light with a pole stuck through it crossways to hang signs off of. Hot Sauce said, "We're light enough. Come on, here." And suddenly there was a cradle for her foot, and Nona found herself boosted up on the pole. She wrapped her legs around it and wriggled upward more out of fright than skill to sit on one of the crossbars. It squeaked a little, but it didn't feel as though it was going to give immediately. It was as though it was going to immediately give way. Hot Sauce shinnied up the other side. Shinned? I always think it's shimmied. So shinned? Probably shinnied. She sat beside Nona on the bit that stuck out opposite, and they laced their arms around the central pole and huddled there to watch the screen, head and shoulders above the rest of the crowd, their legs dangling. Okay, I'm excited to see what's going to happen. Like, who's going to talk, what's going to... Oh my goodness. Sorry. Oh my goodness. This is... I don't really have a comfortable place to put my legs. It's a little annoying. Also, my friend sent me these delicious chocolate-covered pomegranate seeds, so forgive me. My God, they're so good. Dark chocolate. There was a huge noise of breathing, feet shuffling, coughs and sneezes, and the ignition and exhaustion noise of motors. But nobody was talking. Every so often someone would raise their voice and everyone around them would converge, as though they had all agreed beforehand that nobody would talk. I'm trying to see if that looks better. And if it's more comfortable. Yeah, I think that way it bothers me less. Nona looked at the faces of the crowd, hooded against the heat and the dust, wondering briefly and hopefully if Pyrrha and Camilla or Palamedes were somehow among them, or Crown. It was like looking at the sea. Gray colors, drab green colors, every so often, a paler moving blotch of dun or tan. It made her feel a little sick to look at so many people, so many sets of shoulders and crossed arms, so she stared up at the screen instead. Stared at the screen instead. That is interesting, and I am going to put a purple tab there. Might not be important at all, but, you know, another mystery about Nona, I feel like, so it could be. It was still unfolding. They had set up the big metal frame, and shiny skin made of tessellated hexagons was slowly being stretched over it by people attached to guy lines. They had gotten nearly all of the way and were fixing the ends now, but a corner would come loose, and by the time they could repin it, an opposite corner would go. Nobody seemed to find this funny. Eventually the pale gray shiny hexagon stuff was taut before them, as high as the second story of the school building, seemingly 5 times as wide. A trembling rectangle. They clipped power lines to the sides, and every so often white light would popple over one of the hexagons. Well, that's cool. Also, I zoned out for half a second, remembering that I forgot to say that it doesn't really matter, but I was kind of too lazy to put the horns on today. Also, it's no longer Halloween month. Doesn't mean I won't dress up, but we'll see. Pale gray shiny hexagons taut, as high as the second story of the school building, seemingly 5 times as wide, a trembling rectangle. Yeah, that, I definitely read that out loud and did not comprehend a word because my brain was thinking about that. Gotta love how that happens sometimes. Not comprehend. I don't know if that's the right word. Process? It didn't process, yeah. My processing speed is already slow. There was a murmur from the crowd now, the first one that wasn't interrupted. People were looking at their watches. They were looking at the screen. The broadcast was late. At first, nothing happened. For a moment, Nona wondered if the broadcast hadn't been all some big joke or prank, if nothing was going to happen at all. Then, one hexagon close to the corner rippled again. I'm excited. Each of its neighbors rippled, and a cascade of white light burned over the surface of the screen. There was an enormous screech from the collection of speakers piled untidily at the bottom of the screen. I'm sorry, for some reason it really makes me laugh too much. It's just a bunch of speakers just kind of... The crowd shuddered at the sound, and Nona's teeth set on edge, and then a voice suddenly emerged. A strange, low voice, speaking what everyone called house, caught halfway into a sentence. Dissolved through official government channels. We will, of course, be happy to facilitate local elections to ensure the populace feels represented in those communities and resolutions. Under these conditions, no population-wide penalties will be levied. There will be no effects on resettlement. No legal ramifications will fall on groups or individuals, unless they're found guilty of terrorism in the aforementioned tribunal. Definitions of terrorism will be agreed on via elected representatives. All households and individuals can make a plea for restitution, which will be answered not through the local authorities, but by the Emperor of the Nine Houses. Okay, so that's why I called him the Emperor. I forgot that that is one of his names. For a moment, Nona could barely make heads or tails of it. It was lucky that it was House, which she and Pyrrha and Palamedes and Camilla spoke anyway, but not having anyone to look at foxed her. The voice was also saying a lot of words she had never before heard, in context or otherwise. She looked at Hot Sauce's face instead, half hidden behind its hood, taut with listening. This agreement, the voice echoed over the crowd. Wait, I thought they said that it was video for a reason, so they, don't get shot or something. Well, then why aren't they showing any faces? What's on the video? I'm confused. This agreement, the voice echoed over the crowd, is, as I speak, being transcribed and will be displayed in public in official local languages. How many do we have of those? 17? Well, someone's in for a long night. Displayed in public across the city as soon as translations have been finalized. The agreement will, without further negotiation, be considered legally binding. However, as I mentioned at the start of this broadcast, there are conditions that must be met. Any individual or group who violates these conditions renders the entire agreement, I'm sorry to say, null and void. The population will consequently represent a legal entity that has damaged property, acted unlawfully, committed or been accessory to murder, and performed a coup. What? Sounds real extreme. This is per the contracts drawn up between you and the Emperor Undying over 700 years previous when this settlement was created. His offer of a break in that contract is entirely contingent on what you do now. Give me a second. It seems we fixed the equipment. We were using it in a barricade? How exciting. Anyway, we should have screen capabilities now. Once again, I should have just kept reading. Though I don't know, sometimes they don't explain things. The hexagons writhed in agony, then resolved into a picture. Oof, I'll be using a lot of green tabs. I like that. Where did my other ones go? Let's see if I can use some of the, my old ones and see if they're okay. So I just switched to an entirely new one so I didn't have to bother. Yep, there's still sticky stick. Oh well. There's residue left on the other one. So that's annoying, but... What she was looking at, Nona could for a moment not tell. The heinous light bathed the crowd in white and rainbow colors. Oh yes, this was a good decision to put a green tab there. That's gorgeous. The screen made all the hues garish, 10 times more saturated than they should have been, as though they were drawn by someone who had only had certain colors in their pencil box. The camera swung back and forth a few times, which made Nona nauseous. There were brief flashes of boots and legs, of white so white they looked yellow except where they were splotched with red so red they looked orange. Interesting. A multi-hued melange of faces and walls before it settled on a desk. Seated at the desk, looking mildly annoyed, but perhaps like that was their normal expression, a person came into focus. Nona was charmed immediately by the clothing. Interesting. The other boots and the other shirts and the other legs had looked dirty and shabby from what she'd briefly seen, but not this person. Their coat was so spotlessly white that on camera it looked blue. So was their neckerchief. Cohort, I'm assuming. The camera jumped a lot closer, focusing on this figure from the waist up now, and Nona could see that the neckerchief had a pretty gold pin sparkling in the folds. I thought their neckerchiefs were red, so possibly could be a status thing. Or, not status, but, position. The person themselves was frighteningly pale of skin, and their hair alarmingly perfect in shape and form. Nona had never seen hair like that before. It was as though it had been sculpted, not grown. It was a rich, middling brown, thick and shiny even beneath the strong lights that had been aimed at it. Most people under such lights would have shown at least a little scalp. The expression was one of intense boredom. Their body language betrayed more interest, and their lips were a little too pale to be lips, but shiny like the hair, as though someone had applied gloss. But their huge, screen-magnified eyes were quite pretty, Nona decided, blue with brown bits. She had never seen eyes like that before. And they? Brown? She dye her hair? Blue with brown bits. Those are Babs's eyes, right? I mean, it could be someone else, but I feel like it's meant to be someone significant, so... She is very, very pale. So I'm guessing this is Yanthe. Why do every time I say her name, I second guess that I'm pronouncing it wrong? It's been a while since I listened to the audiobook. Oh well. She had never seen eyes like that before. Interesting. I wonder if that's just her being like, oh, these eyes are unique. Or her recognizing something about them being, not quite right. Good evening, New Row, said the person. Are we finally getting some information? Maybe. I'm gonna put a information tab here. Dark purple. Nobody responded. The young, well-dressed, dead white person didn't seem to wait for them. They said instead, citizens, settlement refugees, all other residents, here is a list of the Emperor's conditions. 1. That all violence of any kind directed at cohort facilities ceases immediately, both the barracks and the surrounding residential areas. Okay, so the 6 houses stuck in the cohort barracks? There's a cohort presence on this planet? Or is Blood of Eden really that strong that they're just like overpowering it in this case? And they haven't really sent people over because of the Resurrection Beast to fix that. Theories. 2, that all attacks on cohort soldiers cease immediately, whether they are inside cohort facilities or outside. 3, that all casualties belonging or suspected of belonging to the Emperor's 9 houses are surrendered and brought to the barracks gates. 4, that all members of the group calling themselves Blood of Eden cease operating in this area, and that anyone who comes into contact with Blood of Eden refuses succor, materiel, or weapons from them. 5, here the beautiful pale person paused for the first time, though it seemed that it was less for not knowing what to say and more for the sake of waiting. That any member of house personnel who has left their post, disappeared into the population, arrived after the siege and failed to make themselves known to the authorities, that anyone who serves the Emperor, cohort, or otherwise, and who has made themselves absent without leave, present themselves to me immediately at the barracks during the next 24 hours. This is the amnesty period. Take it or leave it. Remember that it is in your power to turn Emperor's evidence. Remember that it is in your power to turn Emperor's evidence, with 2 capital letters, and be granted the mercies of the King Undying. To turn Emperor's evidence? I'm assuming that means they're, like, evoking some kind of clause or something like that. And being like, it's a weird way to put that, I don't know. Their eyes unfocused a little. They looked at someone beyond the camera, not at the gathered crowd. Whatever was being said or gestured, it caused the speaker to quirk their perfect dark eyebrows in a kind of, oh, for goodness sake, moment of impatience. For those of you not privy to the beginning of the broadcast, it drawled, I will inform you again that the Emperor cares deeply for Nero. He has no desire to see the end that I can assure you firsthand has come for the rebels of Ur. The rebels of Ur? What? Okay, that's interesting. He wants to see resettlement and supply begin afresh, and believe me, the current disturbance in the planet's atmosphere is no barrier to the graces or the punishments that the Nine Houses can distribute, if you say so. I say this with all the authority invested in me as Prince Ianthe Naberius I, the Lictor Prince, the Saint of Awe. What? Once again, we're given information and being entirely bamboozled at the same time. Or I'm being bamboozled. Ianthe? What's happening? You okay? Is Babs being a problem in there? Saint of Awe. I guess we could say that. Why would he be Awe, though? You can't say Saint of Hairspray. Or Saint of, douchebaggery. Okay, I'm putting a dark purple tab in there as well. Lictor Prince. Interesting. Interesting. Have they figured out the perfect thing, sort of? No? I don't think it's possible because she already absorbed him. I don't know. But I am very curious. For a moment, the crowd was silent. The speech had to be translated for some people, anyone who didn't have really good house. But then the words spread through the crowd. Lictor, lictor, lictor. Prince Ianthe Naberius said, I hope you find that comforting. Nobody found it comforting. The word was picking up. Lictor, 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 like the wind. Sorry, I need to fix this tab. It was sticking out too far. Come on. Come on. The person, Prince Ianthe Naberius, drawled, Yet that's not all, and made a brief and strange expression. It was one Nona had never seen. One Nona couldn't parse. The prince crooked their finger at someone Nona couldn't see, and the camera wobbled and pulled back to reveal that someone else was sitting right there at the same desk. My eyes went down. I was like, something is happening, but I didn't. Yeah. The first person sat beautifully while the second person sat with ramrod posture. They were dressed in the same bright white jacket as their counterpart with the same tie. Their skin was rendered pallid in those hot lights with the same weird waxy quality. Warm-colored skin that should have been a similar brown hue to Nona's, except that there was something wrong with it. Their crooked mouth was set in a serious, bloodless line, and their face held no expression at all. It was a grim mask on a forbidding face, with about as much animation as the portrait in Wee Suffer's office. The only thing alive about the second person was their hair, neatly arrayed with a wreath of finger bones and white spring-like blossoms. Wildly red hair, red enough to make the electric hexagon struggle with it. It was the face of the girl in her dream. What the fuck is happening right now? I'm fine. No, I'm not fine. How? What? I thought they had Gideon's body. Did they give it up? What's happening? Okay. I'm feeling a little lightheaded right now. I'm fine. Everything is fine. I'm not fine. I just want my girls to be fine and together. Okay. And their eyes. After that first astonishing moment, Nona stared without seeing in a wild paralysis of recognition. She was trembling. The face on the screen was the face of the girl in her dream. It was the picture of the face that Camilla and Palamedes had drawn for her, but so much more serious, so lifeless, so slack, like the girl was sleeping with her eyes open, that for a moment she thought she must be mistaken. Yet there she was. It was her, the girl in her dream. For a moment Nona panicked, convinced that somehow the broadcast could see her too, that the girl was looking at her. But she'd imagined it. Broadcast didn't work that way. What about the eyes? What about the eyes? Tell me about the can't remember if Nona's got the orange eyes or not. I think she does. I don't know, okay? I'm fine. Everything is fine. The Emperor has sent no intermediary to vouchsafe you, the first person said. Nona could barely hear for looking. I like that. All these promises are made by no lowlier personages than myself and Her Most Serene Highness, Crown Prince Kiriona Gaia, heir to the first house, the Emperor's only daughter. Okay, what is with all of these calling them prince instead of princess? What's happening? What kind of fucking name is that anyway? Kiriona Gaia? That's lame as fuck. I'm sorry, but it is, and Gideon would say so if she was present, which she clearly isn't. Also, most is italicized. Her Most Serene Highness. I guess that, you know, one of Harrow's AUs was, you know, foreboding. Not foreboding. Foreshadowing. There's a lot going on in my brain right now, okay? Nobody said anything. Prince Ianthe Nibirius continued. The Emperor Undying has sent nothing less than his own tower princes as gracious tokens of his extreme love and concern, his unimpeachable authority. So it was a tower. What tower? Where's the tower? What's happening? What? Okay. There was something irrepressible hovering at the edges of the person called Prince Ianthe Nibirius' mouth at love and concern, like a struggle not to smile or not to explode in a fit of temper. Nona had rarely seen those two feelings go to war before. Ooh, I love that. Yeah. So either, you know, things are happening, or Ianthe is just, you know, she already has those Gemini vibes. I mean, they are twins, so. Nona had rarely seen those two feelings go to war before, but it only lasted a second. The camera waited on the other person, the other prince, as though waiting for her to say anything. She didn't. She was as stony and as cool as uninterested as she had been before. Curiously, Nona noticed, she didn't even seem to be breathing. Okay, so there's nobody in there. They just have like a weirdly preserved body as a figurehead. I don't like that. That's weird. Y'all? That's weird and creepy. Anyway, back to me. Prince Ianthe Nibirius, said Prince Ianthe Nibirius. The screen nauseously wobbled back and closed in. The crown prince, the dream girl, disappeared from view. They said, I will broadcast again, exactly 24 hours from now with new instructions. What those instructions are will depend very much on you. Hail to the Emperor Undying, to his 9 houses, and also to you, his respective packmates, beneficiaries, and allies. There was a pause. In a quite different voice, the person said, that'll fix their little red wagons. Is this still on? What little red wagons? What's happening? What the fuck is happening? The screen flickered and a disembodied voice said, this broadcast will repeat at 5 o'clock tomorrow as a recording. Then it all went dead. The hexagons flared white. One sparked at the end of the frame. The sun had sunk a little lower behind the buildings, so when the broadcast stopped, it all seemed extraordinarily dark, like nighttime had come early. Nona clung to the pole with slippery hands, feeling all at sea. She focused in on Hot Sauce's breathing, which was very shallow and very soft. But there. Nona looked at the way Hot Sauce's nostrils flared deep inside her hood. At the rise and fall of her chest, she wanted to make sure. Silence had broken. Some of the militia had taken over the loudspeakers, telling people to go. They repeated, disperse, disperse. But nobody seemed to want to disperse. The noise grew and grew and grew. Someone right under Nona's pole said, this city's over. I'm going into the desert. We won't survive another one of these. What? Another one of what? War? I guess? Someone in the crowd was yelling. They were being pulled away by 2 other people. Nona saw their faces as the crowd pressed, and the crowd parted. They were saying, "Liars, liars, you're fighting, they're losing, liars." The megaphone was still bleeding out, "Disperse, disperse." One of the militia trucks had turned on its alarm so that Nona couldn't hear individual voices anymore. It was a horrible sound, a long dying whine punctuated by a whirring wee-oo noise, like when the poison cats were fighting. The what now? The poison cats? What's happening here? I guess I'm using another yellow tab. Well, let's see if the yellow tabs also have residue. The older ones. Kind of, not really. The poison cats. She clung to hot sauce and the pole. Some people tried to throw things at the screen, but other people were pulling them away. The crowd's fear had changed and mixed them up. They were surging this way and that, forming rivers and currents, some people refusing to move, others struggling to get away. One of the militia trucks was slowly chugging into the crowd, people pushing to get out of its path, as someone on the back of it yelled and gesticulated. "Everyone on this side of me, go down the Broadway. Everyone on this side of me, back towards the motorway. Come on." No shots had rung out, at least. There were scuffles among the people, but most sets of shoulders Nona saw seemed more depressed than anything. She looked at Hot Sauce and nervously joggled her elbow. Hot Sauce didn't seem inclined to move. She whispered, "What now?" Hot Sauce looked at Nona. Her pupils had gone small and dark. "They're not people, Nona," she said. "They're not people." Nona ventured, "They seemed strange." "Because they're not real," said Hot Sauce. "Oh, okay. Her lips were a little wet. She was terribly afraid all of a sudden, Nona could see, filled with the fear that her body spent so much of its time rejecting. Nona thought about her tantrums, and buoyed by the courage that had brought her here, reached out to seize Hot Sauce's wrist that wasn't holding full. "Listen to me," she commanded. I'm your teacher's aide." "Breathe with me. I'll squeeze your hand for in and let go for out. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Not so quickly. Don't hyperventilate," she added, knowing that she sounded exactly like Camilla. Sweet girl. Hot Sauce acquiesced. She took 5 breaths in, 5 breaths out, all while the alarm blared horribly and the crowd surged and billowed beneath them. Her face still looked strange and rigid, as though she might puke. Nona realized that although Hot Sauce was still her leader, she had to help Hot Sauce. She had to be the one who was nearly 19. She started to caterpillar herself back down the pole. Her long career as the worm with problems had taught her the movements she needed to lower herself. "Nona, I love you. The worm with problems." Throwback to the beginning of the book where things were domestic and cute. Oh, goodness. When her feet touched the bottom, jostled by people on her elbows and shoulders all the way, she called, "Come down, let's go." "Come on, I just want to put a tab for Caterpillar." Hot Sauce came down. Nona held her hand as they joined the crowd. She scanned over the tops of people's heads and thought a little desperately that she knew where the crowd was thickest. She was very grateful in that moment that she knew about movements. She hurled herself and Hot Sauce into the current and dragged her toward where they had come from. I'm probably overusing the narratively important tabs, but I don't remember what else I was doing for Nona's little quirks. So later, I suppose I can always redo them with different tabs. Dragged towards where they had come from, changed her mind in a moment of stillness, joined a rivulet heading east, wriggling into their midst and saying loudly, my sister's going to be sick," which got them a tiny opening, enough to move through. The crowd extended all the way up the back street. She could smell the smoke where the old water treatment plant was still smoldering. They had barely made it into the artery going up the street before a shot rang out in the crowd behind them. Everyone screamed and cringed, and then everyone ran. At the noise of the bullet, Hot Sauce seemed to come online again. She dragged Nona into a tiny alleyway, away from the stampede. She said, "Go!" And Nona was grateful to have her back, grateful to let her take the lead. They had to climb mounds of leaking garbage sacks, and Nona cut herself terribly on a jaggedy old can. She squealed at the pain, but stuck her hand in her pocket to hide it. The noise grew terrible. Alarms, yells, backfiring trucks. Trucks. They scrambled up and down fences. The wires cut their hands. They skidded and fell down in broken and half-demolished buildings. It seemed like the sound was always right behind them, and they couldn't get away from it. "Nona!" called a voice. "Nona! Hot Sauce! Girls!" The angel to the rescue. The voice came from a truck with a grill. This truck had mounted the pavement and the other cars were honking at it. It was the angel sitting in the passenger seat. She had the window rolled down and she was twisting herself into a knot to open the back door. She bawled, "Get in!" Hot Sauce and Nona didn't need asking twice. They threw themselves at the truck, scrambled up into the rough potholed back seats, and shut the door behind them, panting. Nona was there lying in the bit where your feet went, looking baleful at all the noise and interruptions. The angel said to someone, "Drive!" They were separated from the passenger seat by a fine black mesh, but the angel had peeled it back so she could look at them. She said sharply, "Are you hurt?" "Nona got cut," said Hot Sauce, grimy and dirty and bloody herself. "No, I didn't," said Nona. I thought I did, but I didn't. You're covered in blood. I'm fine. I'm fine." Angel, having ascertained that neither of the girls were bleeding out, said, "Buckle yourselves in. Both of you deserve to be bloody pancakes." Kevin was in hysterics. "How did you know where we were?" asked Nona, wrestling with the seatbelt. "I'm not stupid. I've been doing donuts around the school building for the last half hour waiting for you two to turn up." Nona was amazed that she and Hot Sauce had gotten as far as the school building, but also that they had not gone further. It seemed as though they'd been running for ages. Hot Sauce said, "Where are the others?" And the angel said, "Safe. The moment I knew you two had scarpered, I decided to pull everyone back in case they got the same idea." "Go left," she said to the unseen driver. "For God's sake, don't use the motorway. Everyone's driving like maniacs. Don't take anything that feeds onto the Civic. And don't rear-end anyone." "Who is driving this fucking car?" said the driver. They had a low, tense voice and surprisingly good house. Why are they speaking house? "You. So make sure we have the car to drive by the end of the journey," said the angel. She turned back to the girls. She had fixed her face into steely, teacherly disapproval, and Nona writhed beneath it. She said, "Hot Sauce, I'm driving you to the shelter." No shelter. I'll bunk with Honesty," said Hot Sauce distantly. "As if. I dropped off Honesty myself. You know where Honesty lives, and you'd be going in the wrong direction inside that mess." "No shelter. They're autocrats," said Hot Sauce. "Okay, you can sleep in a place I know. It's mine, but I'm not going to be using it." The driver said, "You're not? If I don't go home with you, you're going to crouch outside my door all night." "Oh, that's cute." "Don't make it sound like it's my idea," said the driver. Hot Sauce subsided into silence. Nona watched her face flatten, which meant that she had no argument to make. The angel turned her sights on Nona instead and said briskly, "Nona, where do you live?" Nona told them. The driver tried to crane their neck around to look at her, but it was simply impossible. There was too much grill, and they were wearing a thick desert muffler around their head. The angel, who could crane, had craned immediately. She said bewildered, "I thought Jolie was funning me. The building? Inside of it, you mean?" "Yes," said Nona, who was about to elaborate on exactly where, but remembered Calamity's and Camilla's warnings, and shut herself up in time. She said, "I do live there, really, truly." The angel righted herself in her seat. She said, "We'll go there first, then." "Thank you," said Nona meekly. Now that the adrenaline had passed, all the fight had left her. She just felt frightened and shivery. When the angel said, "Hot Sauce, how bad is she hurt? Nona, have you had your stone mouth jab?" She couldn't think of anything smarter to do than to tuck her hands inside her jacket and say, "I'm fine, not hurt at all." "Horse shit," said the angel. "You're all over blood. There's a first aid kit beneath your seat, Hot Sauce." "Really, I'm not. It can't be my blood. It must be someone else's. Maybe it's tomato sauce. Who knows? It could be anything. But please don't worry about it." Not, as Pyrrha would have said, her best effort. But maybe the rising hitch of hysteria in her voice convinced the angel, because she only said, I'll check you out tomorrow. If you start to feel faint or get a fever, let someone know, all right?" I will, I promise." The person in the driver's seat muttered, "I can't believe this." "Yes?" said the angel. "Were those your dulcet tones making commentary?" "If only people knew this was how you spent your time, Aim. They should hope to God they spent their own time half so usefully," said the angel wrathfully. I like that. "Pretending you can bandage bipeds, teaching snot-nosed kids about particles. None of us has snot," said Nona, deeply offended. Then she thought about it and said more truthfully, "Anyway, it's not Kevin's fault." What? I'm putting a funny tab there because I thought it was funny. Kind of funny. Not Gideon funny, but we can't have Gideon funny right now because, Gideon is God knows where, and her body's over there, and they're just like, "Oh yeah, this is our fucking crown prince, something, Gaia." The driver didn't say anything. Hot Sauce spoke up. "We love her." The driver said to the angel and not to Hot Sauce, "Now I see. Chance to be her, huh? A little independent living for once." It is my enormous privilege to be they. Just drive, said the angel crisply. I don't pay you for your opinions. You don't pay me anything, said the driver. I'm here for my bloody sins. Okay, the funny tab is gonna go there. But also, what the fuck does that mean? But yeah. A chance to be her. A little independent living for once. Why are you being mad at someone for that? It is my enormous privilege to be they. It could just be like gender stuff, but it could be like weird plot stuff. Who knows? Or it's one of those, you know, body switching things or soul switching things. Probably not, but you know, watch it be like some lost freaking lictor or something. I don't even know. The drive would have been extremely exciting had Nona's car sickness not warred with her homesickness. Around 26 highly unusual bad things had happened to her today, and she'd assumed she'd only had room for 6 unusual bad things before she had a tantrum. It must mean she was growing up. The driver gunned the ignition and drove in all the places cars weren't meant to drive. Thankfully, a lot of other cars were doing that too. Many times there was a huge bump as the car went onto the pavement or had to swerve suddenly, or rattled down along a little road that didn't have the type of terrain meant for a car. Most terrifyingly, the car once drove down a whole road that had been closed to cars due to the crevasses and potholes, falling right through a plastic snapper that had an illustration of a car falling down a huge hole. And Nona couldn't help uttering tiny shrieks every time they drove close to one of those huge black lightless wells. Noodle uttered tiny "aroo, aroo, aroo" sounds with her, as though in sympathy. Even when the angel said without any particular heat, "Shut up, dog, we've been through worse." Nona felt embarrassed that greater courage was expected of the dog than of her. Hot Sauce settled back in the car seat, and Nona noticed with absolute disbelief that she had fallen asleep. Nona closed her eyes and put her feet close to Noodle, and then suddenly it was their road. The building loomed high above the car window, and tears smarted in Nona's eyes to be finally home after such a long and hideous day. They had to wait until the gate opened before pulling into the deep garage. Nona didn't even question why the truck that the angel was being driven in was allowed access to the gate. Maybe whoever was manning the gate saw the grill and thought better of stopping them. The lights had all been turned off in the underbuilding where the other cars and trucks and motorcycles went, and it was astonishingly dark, all except for the truck's big headlights. There were people next to idling trucks, next to cars, people with their dust hoods up, people with their guns out, or people standing and talking quietly. When they saw the truck, they turned their heads, then immediately looked away again. The driver turned off the lights. It was now so dark inside the car that Nona could barely see herself. And the angel said, Will you be all right from here? Yes, said Nona. Yes, I think so. School will be in session tomorrow, said the angel. The driver said, No, it won't. And the angel said, Yes, it will. Can I depend on you, Nona? Am I going to be in trouble? Least said, the angel, soonest mended. Even in the dark, Nona could see her teeth, her tired smile, the soft set of her shoulders. She reached out a very calloused hand and patted Nona on the head, just as though she were Noodle, and Nona felt better. She knew from that touch that she wasn't really in trouble. Hot Sauce spoke up suddenly and in the darkness, and said, It was my idea. Yes, I was aware, said the angel wearily. Tomorrow, Nona, it'll be safe at the school. Nona pushed hard on the big truck door and slithered out of the vehicle. Outside the truck, it was a little easier to see. There were lights from people's cigarettes, lights from the reflective sprays on the backs of trucks, lights from the landing. She said, Thanks, I love you, and then darted away into the elevator well so fast, as she could, feeling red hot with embarrassment. She hadn't meant to say it. It was like the time Born in the Morning had called the angel Dad. Only she did mean it. She did love the angel after today. Nona took the stairwell up because the elevator stuck so much. Her legs were wobbly and tired, and she had to wait on the landing every time her calves and her feet got too stiff. Thankfully, that sensation never lasted long. It was like a brief twinge, and she was able to keep climbing, up all 33 flights, though after the 32nd she gave up and went on her hands and knees. By the time she was on her own, dear, scrubby-carpeted 33rd floor, with the cot below and the militia guys above and the adjacent crying baby, which was not making itself known, she nearly kissed the floor. Only she thought the Palamides would say that was the easiest way to bring on a serious virus. The last few meters were the longest. Fumbling around behind the mat for where they had glued the spare key and thumbing the right number into the numlock pad took all she had left. She turned the knob and flung the door open. and wailed in a big, excited hurry. "I'm home, I'm safe, you don't have to worry." Camilla rose from the table, empty water glass stacked neatly before her, a whole page of newspaper torn into beautifully even strips, exactly as if a bird had done it, the work of hours, the labor of anxiety. Nona flew to her. Cam caught her up by the arms and looked through her, not at her. Her beautiful pale gray eyes looked like holes burnt in a mask. Then she held Nona so hard that it very literally hurt. Nona's face was squashed into the hard bits of her chest. "Cam, I'm fine," she said again, flattened and breathless. "I'm okay. Where's Pyrrha?" My brain is like trying to skip to the last few sentences while I am reading the previous ones. Gotta love ADHD. Okay. I like that. Her beautiful pale gray eyes looked like holes burnt in a mask. Oof, I like that. Put another green, because why not? I have a whole freaking bag of these tabs. Excuse me. Camilla's arms went slack so Nona could pull back a little way. She looked up at the door as though she expected to see something there, and had just realized she hadn't. She looked down at Nona. When she looked at Nona again, her face was horrible. "Nona," she said, "Pyrrha went to pick you up from school before lunch. I thought she was with you." Yikes! I need nothing bad to happen to our people, please. I know that's too much to ask for, but fuck. Okay, so I was talking to my best friend, and then the sun set, so we've got candlelight hour again. I'm sorry if this looks weird. I'm just gonna finish the little John interlude, and then it's gonna be day 4. And, we're gonna be done, because this video is already long. Not as long as one of my other ones. I don't think it's gone past an hour and a half, but still. Could be, I don't remember. I exported the other one and I didn't look at the final count. I just know it was over an hour. Anyway. Oof. John 19:18. In the dream, the waters kept rising. They started making a hut at the top of the hill. My brain thought the bodies were making a hut, and I was like, what does that mean? Bodies were bobbing up and down in the water. He was scared of that. He was always scared of the water. And he made the waters go away for a while, and he raised up some parts of the earth that had been covered by the sea. She watched them explode upward, shedding tons of water back into the soup. What? She asked him if it was hard. He said the hardest thing was remembering that he could do it and not just doing things the old, difficult way. We're getting another yellow tab for this bitch because none of this makes sense. Also soup. What is happening? Can necromancy fuck with the earth now too? Or is it because the planet's dying or what? I don't even know where they are or what's happening. On the new plank of land, all cut up from the water and the damage, there was a broken concrete building guarded by enormous shards of cracked bone. Like an egg that had been smashed from above. They wandered through the fields, slipping in icy brown mud, but they didn't go anywhere near the building. They found the hood of a half-dead car to sit on, which was drying in the light, and he said, "Politically, we were a landmine." Everybody was trying to get to grips with the time scale. We didn't have much time left, and the new data fucked around with the numbers every day. Every time you breathed funny, we wet ourselves. The sun doesn't breathe. So maybe, I guess there goes my theory. Maybe. That's another theory I didn't mention. That Electo is the spirit of Dominicus. Or maybe he's saying that figuratively. Or whatever. I don't know. I still feel like it's pretty solid. But the old backers, they were the most scared of us. Kept saying we were working with this country or that country, pushed the hardest to prove that what we were doing wasn't real, and that anybody talking to us was helping us pull the world's leg. They were all going round and round and round. I kept saying, "Give me a seat at the table. Let's work out if I can help, if I can do something." He said, "Turns out you can't even talk about whether or not you can work out how to do something without 12 weeks of diplomatic dialogue." It was sick. He said, anyway, we all had Interpol warrants. Some of the guys inside our walls who joined us were like, we want out. Sometimes they wanted out because they were CIA plants and they had bosses to go back to. Sometimes they wanted out because they were scared. I wasn't aware there were people still in there. I forgot. Or was it the people who, like, came by to join his cult or whatever? Anyone who wanted to go, I let them go. I didn't even care about those guys. Like, nice of them to show up, but they were small fry. I could only trust the inner circle. Okay, I think I get it now. My scientist, my engineer, my detective, my lawyer, my artist, my nun, my hedge fund manager. My diehards. Okay, buddy. The ones keeping the lights on. And Ulysses and Titania, my 2 dead kids. But they were dead. They weren't great conversation. I wanted to figure out if I could bring them back, if I could really do it, if I could make them come back to life. Problem said. He said, problem was I couldn't bring anyone back once they'd gone, just to stop them from going if they were close. I could fix all the damage and even get the heart beating again and fix the brain. But there was nothing going on inside Ulysses and Titania. They never talked. They never responded. I'd get really scared now and again and turn off the hearts and the brains. I didn't know what I was doing, and that ate at me. It is a little weird. He said, our nun kept saying, of course you can't bring them back. Their souls are gone. It took me way too long to listen to her, but I was a perfectionist, right? I didn't want to believe that there was a thing like a soul. I didn't want to believe I hadn't gotten it right. I hadn't got it right. He said, both of us were correct. But that's for later. What happened then was we found out where the money had gone. Okay, I guess that's another dark purple tab. For we were both correct. Or is that something we already know about necromancy? Your souls are gone, but you can call them back, I guess. Oh well. I don't think that's important enough. At this point in the dream, he stood up and walked 3 times around the field. He said, don't follow me, I'm mad! She sat on the car roof and watched as he kicked a piece of detritus over the edge of the big muddy field. He had sent it quite high, so it fell into the rising mist and then rattled a long way down the hill until she couldn't hear it anymore. She wondered again why anything that hurt them only hurt briefly, but that anger took such a long time to go away. Because emotions are different than physical pain, I'm guessing? Or maybe that's something significant, who knows. When he got over it, he rejoined her on the bonnet of the car, and he tucked his knees up, and the metal beneath them groaned at their weight, and he began again. He said they took the ships, our ones, the new ones. They said they were going to use FTL instead, faster than light travel. Stupid name for it. It was never really about light speed, but anyway. They said carrying everyone over so slowly was a risk. They'd shut the cryo plant down because it wasn't good enough, it wasn't safe, it wasn't okay or moral. They said we'd only managed to get it down to 8% chance of lasting damage once we thawed them. We'd never fix maternity. So they were sterile afterwards? Or something else, possibly? Here he broke off and couldn't speak for a while. When he spoke again, he said, we were the ones who argued them down to 8%. They were ready to go when we were just in the 70s. They were all, ooh, everyone knows it's a risk, and it's not like 30% fatality, it's 30% chance of damage. What's that even? Ooh, he said. They hadn't given a fuck about maternity. Said people should terminate before they got packed as a rule. Oh, like what would happen to a fetus or whatever? When M had been all, I will not accept those numbers. I will not accept a plan that incorporates reproductive injustice, and we stood beside her. We said that's not acceptable. They whinged about the money for a while and eventually said fine. And now they were acting like 8% wasn't good enough. Like we hadn't tried. He said their plan was to evac the whole population. First, send out a dozen guide ships. They said they'd managed to find some poor dipshit geek could fix the FTL problem of getting locked in the chrono well. You know, moving so fast you were stuck doing quantum wheelies. What? They'd come up with something where you could oscillate out so long as the ship was attuned to a prearranged spectrum outside. I still don't understand the maths. It's going to take me 10,000 years to understand it. I guess that's the thing, so, regular purple for, for narratively important or something, I don't know. It isn't technically foreshadowing, since we know what well, I guess maybe it is. If this is in the past, if this is a memory of the past, as someone suggested. And it does make more sense than my weird theory. I couldn't follow, but A could. He said immediately, "What is the point if you still have no fucking clue where your ship is going to end up when you shake out of FTL?" They said, "Aha, but we can track it once it's out." A said, "It could be halfway across the universe, or phasing through a planet." They kept arguing that probably wouldn't happen, and that A wasn't following, and he had to admit that it wasn't his area. But he said they were taking one discovery and acting like it changed the whole ballgame, when really, we now needed 10 years of funding to discover whether it was any use, i.e. academia functioning as normal. But these trillionaires were acting like they got the Holy Grail. They said it was expensive, so 12 ships would go first, with one guiding them out with the beacon frequencies like a tugboat leading a cruise liner, triangulate for Tau Cetai, dump the population, and come back. They said they were on track to finish a lot more FTL-capable ships by then. He said, "We knew how much those ships cost. We couldn't even imagine how much FTL engines cost, but we could guess. We knew how much each ship could carry. In the cryo cans, we could cram in billions. That was the cryo's saving grace. Whereas they were staffing ships with a living crew, no sleepers, big-ass ships with thousands of live staff. When we pointed that out, they kept saying we were crazy. We were kooks. Kooks. We were monsters. They kept saying cows watched sunsets." What? It's probably an idiom I don't know. "At this point, I wished I'd used the fucking conspiracy theorists instead of the cows. Nobody would have cared if I'd turned people inside out who think vaccines have nanites in them that mine cryptocurrency. But cows watch sunsets, man!" Oh, that's great. He said, M freaked out. She said this was the rats scattering. Said this was why they dumped the cryo plant in the first place. She said we were looking at a private flotilla carrying the rich bastards to safety. And A agreed with her, which was how you knew it was really, really bad. He said this was a blind. He said he wasn't even sure the FTL thing was real. He said they were going to try to generation ship it to Tau Cetai using stuff we'd come up with, tech we'd created, and just be all bye-bye, fuck you planet, thanks for the oil and the chicken yakitori, we loved that stuff. I said again, "Guys, nobody's going to fall for that. They're going to have to give numbers. They're going to have to prove they're making the other ships. Nobody's going to fall for that." Oh, honey. Look at all the division we caused because we proved magic was real and turned Beady Beady inside out because we didn't trust the cops. I'm too lazy to look that up. "It's not going to fly." I said, "They can't do this now. They can't pull it off." At that moment in the dream, he got up off the car. He said, "Fuck," in a normal voice. And then he said, "Fuck," so loudly it echoed off the crumbling concrete shell and the bones and was carried off into mist. She watched him walk into the field. She watched him walk the field 3 times, 5 times, 10. On the 11th, he squelched through the mud to her and collapsed in front of the car, and he said, "They left you. They left you. They saw you suffering on dollar shop life support, and they didn't look back. They didn't give a fuck about trying to save you. They left." She said, "I don't remember." He said, "I can't forget." Okay, so that makes more sense. That makes more sense that it's not, Harrow, because it's finally referencing her as Electo. Well, then why did he say Harrow at the beginning of the last one, or at the end of the last one? Or no, there was some other one. It was not that one. This one is I Still Love You. That's the end of that John Turlude. Let's read a table of contents. Oh my goodness gracious, I just want to know. I just want to know! When is the one he mentioned Harrow in? Harrow, yeah. So he did mention Harrow. Weird. I mean, I guess it could be that it wasn't Harrow the whole time. And we were just meant to think that. I'm tired. I'm gonna go eat dinner and then do God knows what. We'll see. not read anymore. I don't think I have the energy for that. Though I do not want to know what happens. And where's Pyrrha?